Hey, this is Captain Test right here, Captain Test. Hey everybody, thanks for coming out to Testing as a Black Hole of Time and Effort. My name's Jesse Sanders. This is my very good friend Joe Eames. We're both Angular GDEs, and we're here to talk to you today about end-to-end testing. So, with show of hands, who's doing end-to-end testing right now? Awesome. So now, same group of people. Out of those people, who actually likes doing end-to-end testing now? Oh wow, much smaller.
I hear crickets.
Yeah, it's not much. It's not much. Not a big surprise. All right, so here is the URL if you have not already pulled down the source code for this. This is an interactive workshop. We've got an hour with you, and we're going to be showing you how to do this. So go ahead and go to the bit.ly link there and pull that down and run npm install.
bit.ly ngcy. Do that now. Let's see if we can crash the Wi-Fi.
Let's do it. We're in. Yeah. All right, we can go do some kung fu in the karate in the garage while they're doing that. Actually, we should keep talking. So
definitely do this. Follow along. We are going to do hands-on. You're going to walk out of here having written Cypress tests.
Excellent. All right, so the Big Bang happened, and then all of a sudden we got a new project, right? And so this project's going to be amazing. We're going to do everything right this time. We're going to write unit tests,
100%.
Integration tests, 100% code coverage.
110% code coverage.
110%. Oh, that's bad. Wow. That's the Joe Eames way. That's awesome. That's very cool. And we're going to write end-to-end tests. And so we start going along, things are cruising, and then we start to realize that end-to-end testing is really, really hard.
It is?
Writing the test isn't so bad, but the tests start to get really flaky really soon, and all of a sudden, where the tests were running perfectly before, they start crashing, and we don't really understand why. They take way too long to run. All of a sudden, we went from, hey, it's going to take like 5 or 10 minutes, to now we're at like 6 hours.
That's how I binged my Game of Thrones.
Well, this is excellent point. So there's timing issues, there's hacks, there's all sorts of, we're waiting for a particular time, we're looking for a particular element that we're going to key in on, and when that happens, we're going to start our test, and then it doesn't happen that way, so then we hack and we do a set timeout or an interval, or as Joe, what's your favorite one?
Wait. I like just doing I love them. I
like a minute or two, and then
minute or two, maybe. Well, how long is the Game of Thrones episodes?
I think they average between 45 minutes and about an hour and a half.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
Perfect. So, is end-to-end testing worth it? That becomes the question. And the big thing I see is that, will I abandon my tests? And the answer most often is yes. People will write huge libraries of Protractor tests and then ultimately end up abandoning them. So how do we get around this? How do we write better tests and something that's reliable that we can depend on? So we're talking about end-to-end testing tools. We're talking like Selenium, WebDriver, Protractor, Nightwatch. But what I want you to understand is that we're really talking about Selenium. These are all Selenium-based tools. They're just various flavors of them. And who remembers GeoCities, right? Yeah, this is amazing stuff. This was Joe's website.
I wrote this. I made this.
This was the web in 2004. This was the year Selenium was created, okay? I think the web has changed just a little bit since then, Joe. This is my Amazon page, a lot of stuff going on here. But we're trying to use a tool that was designed for this to test this. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. So why is end-to-end testing so hard? In a brief explanation, what we're trying to deal with is a snapshot in a moment of time and trying to figure out what's the element that we're looking for, what's the wait mechanism there that I'm going to find that element and kick off my test. And there's so much variation with JavaScript-based applications, it's very difficult to do that. I think the second one, edge cases, is probably the most difficult. So right now your options are, when you're doing your tests, if you want to try to figure out your edge cases, I got to find, let's say like the product that has a quantity of less than 10, I need to show this reorder panel. Well, the problem is, how do I find a product that has that? So typically I'm doing one of two things. I'm either creating the data during the test, so I double the length of the test, or as Joe loves to do, he has this magic seed database, but the problem is he's never able to run his test because the seed database is down or there's problems with it.
Or somebody modifies my seed database.
That was me. Sorry.
Was you.
Yeah, sorry. Also on top of it, we get really cryptic errors, and we're dealing with massive stack traces trying to figure out what went wrong. And really what happens when we run those tests, we're just throwing the tests over the wall, and then we get this cryptic stack trace back, and we're like, I have no idea what happened. And then there's no dev tools during during testing and writing the tests, because the same mechanisms that dev tools use to interact with the browser are the same tools that Selenium uses, and so we're locked out. Great. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening is all I wanted to do is attach like a little bit, and before we know it, I just have this mess and garbage, and we see teams go ahead and punt their end-to-end tests. So with that, I want to introduce you to one of my favorite new products called Cypress IO. Anybody using Cypress right now? Woo. Yeah, awesome. Well, so I'm hoping that by the time we get done here, it's going to be every single hand in this room is raised, and we're rocking it. So Joe, why don't you tell us, how do we actually get this and fire it up?
All right. So this is how you install Cypress, is you just run npm install Cypress save dev, right? And it does take it a couple of minutes. That's okay. It's a one-time install. The cool thing is once you launch it, it also does a little bit of work. What is the OR here? Ooh, OR. We got the Brebug Cypress schematic. Yeah. Do you know who wrote that one?
I'm not sure.
Whoever it is awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So we actually created this schematic to make things a lot easier to be able to kick off a process, to install Cypress, remove Protractor, and set you up for success.
Right. So then we got actually running Cypress. That's with npx Cypress open. So are we ready? Is it time to actually do something?
I think it's time to do it.
It's time to do something. All right. Where's our terminal?
Oh, I was doing terminal straight out of. I'm old school, man.
You're
we do terminal.
school.
We do
All
terminal right there,
okay,
bro.
Here we go. I'm going to need 2 terminals.
Oh, okay. Here, look. There's a plus sign. Actually, let's just go ahead and launch terminal so you can work natively. Boom.
I like native. All right. I'm on the right directory.
Oh.
All right. So when we're running Cypress, one of the things we need to do is we need to actually have our application up and running, right? Cypress is going to work against our real application. So whatever our application is we're going to have it up and running. If you have installed the sample app that we've got for you today, then the first thing I want you to do is run npm start in a terminal window of that application. So we're going to go npm start.
Oh, I already launched Cypress. So launch another. There we go.
We did the second task first. In a different terminal, run npm start. And in your we're in the right place. No.
Oh, yeah.
In the right directory, we're going to run npm start. We're going to launch our application, right? In the same directory, we're going to run npx Cypress open. We're running them both. We got it?
We got it. We're in. Woohoo!
While this application is coming up, we're going to go and look at our actual tests. Where is it on a different?
No, it's right there.
There? No. I want the code window.
Oh, code window's right behind you.
Thank you.
Oh.
That was totally planned. Okay, here is the code that we've got. When Cypress runs the very first time, it's going to create this Cypress directory that you see over here for you. Right? So create Cypress. It's got a bunch of subdirectories in it. The one that we really care about is the integration subdirectory, because that's where we actually put our tests. When you first execute it, it's going to create a samples directory inside of there. Now, of course, since you've downloaded and installed our application, you're also going to have some other stuff in there. We're going to look at the very first one, this articles.spec.ts file. We're going to start up at the very top. We do have some issues with code because do we have it? Just ignore that. Yours probably won't be giving you these warnings. Cypress starts everything with the CY global object. That's where 99.9% of what you do with Cypress happens. You start with the CY global object. So just like Selenium or any of these other tools, the first thing you do is you tell it to go to a URL. So we've done .visit. Visit is Cypress's way of saying, go hit this URL and open it up. Now you'll notice that I just hit /. How does it know what the protocol is? Cypress has this really nice configuration file, cypress.json, where we can configure certain things. Here I've configured the base URL, right? So that way I don't have to put the URL in when I start my test. I can just put the relative path. And that allows me in CI to actually do like replacing that URL with a different base URL. Then we're going to look at our very first test, this should load when page loads test. Very simple. Again, we start with the CY object. That's how we begin everything, and the get command is how we get a handle to a node. So we use the same type of selectors that you might be familiar with if you're familiar with jQuery or a lot of other, like query selector all. Same type of selectors. We want to get a handle to an actual element. So this is the element I want. This is one of my custom elements. This is a component that I've created, the app article. So it's going to get a handle to all of the app article elements that are on the page. Then the next thing I do is do an assert. That comes with the should command. Cypress is a very chainable API. So we start with a DOM node, and then we're going to assert something about that DOM node. So we have our list of app articles, and we're going to assert that there are at least one of them. The have length greater than 0, so there must be at least one of them. So do you have the app running here?
Pull that up. No, we don't.
We're going to open up the app and actually take a quick glance at it. Who here has actually got the application? Anybody got the application installed and running, following along? You got some people following? Awesome. Keep doing that. If you're not following along, shame on you. but I still love you. Okay, so here's what the application actually looks like. These are those app-article elements. Each of these little tiles that you're seeing. That's the actual app/app-article element. So in this test, we're counting the number of those, at least 0. Very simple test. Obviously, when you look at the page, you can see there are at least 0 of those, so that test is going to pass. Let's go ahead and run our test. So back to the Cypress UI. Very simple. We just come down here and we click on the test that we want to run. I want to run that articles.spec.ts, so I'm going to click on the articles.spec.ts. It's at the bottom of that list. And I click on that, and Cypress is going to open up Chrome. And this is a Chrome that it controls, and it's going to start running those tests. And we see on the left-hand side, it's running all of our tests. Only 2 of them have anything that they're doing. The other 2 are empty. And those are our 4 tests. They're all passing. And I want to look at that very first test. And I click it open, and it actually tells me all the steps of the test. It tells me, hey, I started out by visiting /, and then there's an XHR call that was made. And wow, this is actually really cool. Look at this. I can actually see the state of the application at each point in the test. Every step in the test, including XHR calls, are noted here in this UI. So I can hover over and see the state of the application. Now this is a very simple test. It did very little. Let's go to a slightly more complex example, which is the next one. In this one, we start off by getting our input.search button. So back over to our application. That's this text box up in here. And what we do is we type into there the word canvas. Very easy, just the type method. It's going to type the code into there. So if I type in canvas, and then now I'm going to want it to click the search button. Now this is actually already searched because I lost focus, but if I had refreshed, start off with a fresh page, type in canvas, and then click the search button, we are going to do a search. And now there's only one app article that gets returned, so that's what we do in our third statement. We get a list of the app articles, we make sure that they have a length of 1. Very simple, straightforward. It's such a discoverable, beautiful API. It's really easy to just hit dot and look at the IntelliSense and figure out, oh, it can do this and could do this, and their documentation is great. So let's go back to our Cypress UI and actually look at that second test. I'm going to close this one down, open up that second test that has 3 steps. First, we visit the root URL. Then there's an XHR request that's made, another XHR request. There is the dev server's socket request that we don't care about. Then we get the input.search. So this is very interesting. Look up here at the top left. When I call get.input.search, there's the actual screenshot or snapshot of my application in that state, and the input search is actually highlighted. See that? So right over here, this area has been highlighted. And another cool thing is I can come down here and I could turn that highlight off in case I need to see underneath it and see what the state of it was. I can just click that and turn it off. The other thing I can do is I clicked over here and that pinned the preview, the snapshot of that. Then I typed in there canvas, so again I'm going to turn off that highlighting. And this is before I typed, and there's this little button after. This is after I typed, so it shows me what it was like before and after I executed this command. Then it gets the search button, again that's highlighted. We click on the search button, it gives me a little hit target. It shows me this is where I clicked. There was a post that happened, and then we do our get and assert. So again, at each point it's showing me the snapshot. What's even cooler than all of that is this is literally a working browser. So I can come over here and I can turn on the dev tools and I can look around in here. What does this HTML look like at this point? Boom, I can actually explore around in my application at a given point. This is at the end, but let's go back. Let's go to like where we get the input search, all right? And again, I'm going to inspect that. Boom, here I am. That's the element that it selected, but I wanted the input. Where's that input? Somewhere in here. I've lost it. But you can inspect around, you can dig around and drill around and find out what's going on. Very, very, very cool that you can do all of this. So, now that we've done this...
Joe, actually, one other thing that I wanted to bring up on that is, what you can do is you can click on the console tab, and as you're clicking on each step, if you want more information about what did the XHR request return, or more information about the element, it'll actually console log for you those objects, and so you can inspect those and get more details. This is something that's never been available before in testing tools like Selenium, but now give us a lot more ability to inspect what's actually occurring.
Very important. Let's show that. Here we've got the XHR request to articles recent. I can actually see the XHR request. Here's the request that was made, and it'll show me the headers here. Let's look at tags. Here's the request that was made, there's the headers, and then here's the response that came back. Here's the actual response to that XHR request. So I can check in the middle of the test, did I actually make the XHR request that I expected to make? Were the headers right? The data that came back, was that what I was expecting? Is that the problem? Is that the XHR request is getting called incorrectly? Very, very, very cool. Now that we've done that, it's time for you guys to do something.
I think they're ready to do an exercise.
They are ready to do an exercise.
Let's do this.
I can see a lot of people that are anxious to get their exercise on. So, the very next test that you see here is a student version of the should search. I want you to copy these 3 lines of code, and I want you to paste them in down below, and I want you to pick a different search term that returns a different number of results. And then I want you to change the assertion of how many results are returned and set that to whatever it should be. You can go to the actual application, open it up in your browser in localhost 4200 and try it and figure it out, or just try it in the actual application and run it in Cypress. We're going to give you 2 minutes to do that, and we're going to start right now. 2 minutes.
This would be a great opportunity for them to see how the errors work too, so that because they're probably going to get a different number back of articles, and they'll get to see that error message in Cypress. So watch for that when you're working on this.
And we're going to be doing a whole lot of hands-on, so if you have not installed the application yet, now's a good time to do it. bit.ly/ngcy for Angular Cypress, ngcy. Got a question?
Yeah, I'm getting much more than the 5 test results that you guys are running.
Just click on that file down there at the bottom. Just click on that.
If you run all tests, you're going to get all the results. Otherwise, this allows you to just run one test spec at a time.
Yep, just click on that one file. Don't click run all specs.
All right. Do we have the Jeopardy music?
We've got 1 minute left. I was not paid for my singing voice.
Hopefully not.
What term should we search on? Let's pick a term.
Gosh, what's popular? I think RxJS.
Should we search on Jesse?
There's probably nothing. Nobody wants to read those articles.
We'll safely say there's going to be 0. Well, let's leave it at 1.
Whoa, wow.
All right. Let's see.
I think this test is going to fail.
You think it's going to fail?
I think it's going to fail. I don't know.
This test is going to win.
It's going to win?
It's going to win.
I can feel it. We should run our test.
Let's run our test?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
If you hit save, it actually just runs your tests again for you. So I hit save. Let's see what I should search. Student version. Timed out. How many did we get?
Yeah, you didn't put any of my articles.
All right, so our version where we search for a term that doesn't have any hits came back with 0 results. And again, look here, there's our error message. Right? This is how it happens, is it times out, and it shows us what the problem was. Expected the length to be 1, but it actually got 0, so let's just go in and fix our test to be 0. We'll save that, and it automatically is going to run the test again, and
What's great too is in that yellow info box, it's going to give you more clues about what might possibly be wrong. So pay attention to those. So instead of having to dig through again these cryptic stack traces, I can get some hints about what actually might be my problem.
Right. All right, so that's a very basic test. Simple and straightforward. We've seen how to do that. If you've been following along, you've done that. If you haven't had a chance to do that test, no worries, that one's super simple. We're going to have you do something even bigger, right? We're going to have you do a far more complex test. So, right underneath that, we've got a real meaty test right here. We've actually given you a whole bunch of comments of things we want you to do in this specific order. This is like the recipe that you would give a manual tester of, go here, do this, count these things, right, do all this. We just turn that into an actual end-to-end test in Cypress. So, we're going to give you 10 minutes-ish to write this test, which is first, check that the total number of tags, tags, let's go back and actually look at the application, explain this application a little bit. Tags are over here. These are the tags. There are exactly 20 of these. There's a little cheat. It won't make you count those manually. These are all the tags. Okay? So this tag is like a little bit of a search box where you can search and find tags that are, each article is tagged with certain things. So be sure that you clear out your search term if you actually have done this to make sure that you aren't also filtering on a search term. But here's your list of tags. So we want you to count the number of tags that actually exists here on the left-hand side. That's the very first thing we want you to do. Then find the search tag's input and type in the string ANIM. So here we go, ANIM, right? And that's going to give you back a certain number. This is going to be a really hard number to count. I have no idea how to count that high.
3, 1, 2.
Yeah, that's hard for me. And then assert that the number of tags that is now visible is going to be that number. What was that number again? I forgot.
I'm not sure. I think they got it though.
Okay, so the second tag in that list is animations. We want you to click on that animations tag. When you do that, it actually returns all the articles that are tagged with that and gives you a set of sub-tags that are tagged with that. Once you've clicked on that second tag, then get a handle to assert the number of selected tags as 1. We can see that here. This tag is selected. There's something about that. You can look at the CSS, inspect it, and see that it is selected. Make sure that it is selected. Then assert that the total tags is 15. There are 15 tags here. We cheated for you again. Showed you that there are 15 tags. Back again to our test. Click on the tag that says routing. Assert that there are 3 articles showing. If I click on the routing tag, which is right there, I'm going to have 3 articles showing. Then, if you get through that in less than 10 minutes, we have a few bonus tasks for you. We'll let you play with those. So now it's time to go. We're going to go 10 minutes starting from right now. Go ahead and write that test. See how far you can get, and then towards the end, we'll actually write that as well. If you happen to be getting errors, TypeScript errors in your Visual Studio Code editor, you can fix that by going to your tsconfig.json and adding that line right there. The types as an array with Cypress in it. If you are getting those same errors the TS Visual Studio Code is giving those TS errors, you can fix that with this line and then going back to a TS file and clicking restart, doing a restart TS server with Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P on Windows.
Cool. Who's still working on the problem?
Anybody finished? Yeah?
Joe, I think you made the test too hard.
I'm all about shooting for the moon.
Shoot for the moon, absolutely.
That matches the theme.
It does. I like it. That was just off the cuff, too.
It was just off the cuff. So these are the first 3 commands in here. First I want to get the div tags, and I check that they should have a length. Then I want to get the tags container input and type ANIM in there. And then I want to get the actual tags. So again, if you just go back and look at the HTML, you can find selectors for it. What do these elements have for a selector? This is the same thing that you would do in regular end-to-end testing, is just looking through and figure out how do I select certain elements. Then we check that our length is a given length, right? So in our case, the length was going to be 3, and we check that. And we can go on and on and on and do all those other...
I have a question, Joe.
Yeah.
Why did you do that first line there? That seems a little odd.
All right, so if we save, then we go back and look at Cypress, we'll see that this test is going to pass. That's my little student version, that's passing, right? But this is kind of interesting. Watch what happens if I comment out this very first line where I'm counting just the number of tags that should be there, and I save that, and we go back and look at Cypress. Then that file, that test, here we go.
It failed.
It failed.
What happened?
Okay, so this is kind of tricky, right? What's actually happening is when I'm telling Cypress, let's refresh our page here, or let's reset our filters. When I'm telling Cypress, go into this and start typing in ANIM, it's doing it immediately, basically, as the page is getting loading. But what is actually happening at the same time is it's fired off XHR requests to get those tags. So it's typing before that XHR request has come back. That's something a human can't do, but the system can. It can start typing immediately. And so all that filtering is happening before the data has come back. I actually really need to wait for the data to come back. When I told Cypress, go ahead and look for 20 tags, it actually is going to wait until the 20 tags appear.
Wait, though. This is so hacky. This is the stuff we're trying to get away from, Joe.
Yeah,
and here
but that's how I made it work.
You're teaching people.
It took me an hour to figure out how to hack myself around that problem.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I got a solution for you, okay? Because we don't want to write code like this. This is the exact problem that we wanted to get away from.
Right.
Okay, so I want to introduce you to a couple other concepts. And this is really, so far what we've showed you is kind of cool. You got some great interactions. We're really able to see what's going on in our tests and interact with our tests in a watch mode. But we're seeing that we're still kind of prone to having some potentially hacky ways of doing things, and I want to show you how you get around that. So I want to introduce you to server, route, and wait. So Cypress can actually wait for your API calls. So this is something that's very unique. It's not available in Protractor. You can't actually wait for API calls. You can only wait for elements to show up.
So one of the reasons that this is possible is because Cypress actually controls the browser. So it knows when the browser is making XHR requests and when it's receiving XHR requests. That's a fairly unique feature to Cypress.
Absolutely. So how easy is this to do? It's as simple as just saying, I want to start up the server. So I say CY server, and I say CY route, and I specify the route that I want to watch for. So in this case, I want to watch for the API tags. And then I want to alias that. So then the third step to this is I can say, Cypress, wait for tags. Notice I'm using the @ symbol there. That's designating that I'm using an alias, and that's what matches up the second and the third line together.
So .as is an alias?
.as is an alias. So if we go back over to the hacky version here of what we did,
Joe equals hacky.
Joe, I didn't say that. That was your words. Here we go. You see, I've got the same code in here. I copied it over, simplified version. I want to go ahead and get rid of this. I want to say, go ahead and start up the CY server, and then I want to set up the route, not router, the route, and I'm going to watch for API tags. I'm going to alias it as tags. And now I want to just say CY wait. I use the @ symbol to designate that I'm using the alias. Ta-da, no more hack.
Did you save it? Is the test running? Oh, we got to run a different test file. We're running another test file. How are we running a different test file?
So I go over here. So this was in the articles using waits file. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on that file, and it's now going to run my test. And you can see it's actually saying, let me blow that up just a little bit. Oh, excellent. No request ever occurred.
Live coding, baby.
Exactly. Everybody in the front row, did you sign the waiver? Because when stuff blows up, I don't want to be responsible. I forgot a very important step here. I actually have to go visit my site. Okay, it's I'm like, wow, that's weird. It hasn't gone anywhere, Joe. Okay. So I'm going to click on that again. And this time, we're going to work.
What's going to work? Teamwork.
Boof.
Click on it. Is it trying? Is it actually visiting?
No, we're not. It's not actually hitting the site.
Hit undo a whole bunch of times.
Right? Oh, here, I'm just going to do this here before each and bring that over.
Here. Double check.
The what?
You got this all right? You got to visit. That's weird.
Oh, that's it. Here's the problem. So this is really interesting. I'm asking it to wait for the tags, and it won't actually process the next step. And so I'll actually move
Cypress
this.
is linear. It actually does each step one at a time, and it doesn't move on to the next step until the previous step is done.
So I needed to visit before I start to wait for the tags. And so now when I come back over here, hey, look whose test is now working. Woo! Awesome, yay! Awesome. All right. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind is the order that you're sequencing things, that you're making sure that you're not doing a wait before the action that you want to wait for.
Wait is actually a really cool thing, and it's the kind of thing as you're starting to do Cypress tests, you should really get in the habit of defaulting to, hey, if I need some data to actually be back, I want to go ahead and wait for the request to come back. And we didn't really stress this enough, but unlike Selenium, where you might put in all these like timeouts, like, well, let's wait another half second, or maybe wait an extra second, Cypress is just polling. It's constantly checking. So the minute something is ready and complete, it moves on. So it always waits the minimum amount of time that you need. So if you tell it to wait for a JSON, an XHR request, and that XHR request takes 23 milliseconds, it only waits the 23 milliseconds. You don't have to say half a second and know that it's at least going to be no more than that.
So this would be the spot where I'd usually have you then do this for waiting for the recent articles, but since we still have people that probably don't have Cypress installed and have that come down, because again, it's a really big download, and which is why we were hoping to have people do this before we got started. I'm going to go ahead and code along and just talk you through how we'd wait for recent articles. So here I'm going to call Cypress server. I'm going to do declare my route, and again, I actually put a little hint in here for API articles recent. And I'm going to alias that as articles. This time I'm going to do it right. I'm going to visit my site.
Good job.
Excellent. I do learn eventually. And now I am going to say site wait for articles. Great. So I go ahead and save that. I'm going to come back over. Oh. Great. Kick that back off. And now we're able to wait. So this is kind of nice, but this doesn't really help me with what we talked about with Selenium and the things that we were really trying to work around. Okay, edge cases is a big one. So one of the things I want to show you today is great. Now we can wait for API calls, but what about stubbing calls? So when I first heard about this, I'm like, really, stub out my application, all of it? And this is the recommendation, is that you'd write one test that does a full end-to-end integration, so that you test out all your integration points, basically what I would call a smoke test. And then the idea here is we stub out all of our other tests. We don't need to test out the backend API. Our application actually ends the moment that the HTTP client request is sent, and what we can do now is intercept those calls. So why would we do this? One, it's super, super fast. I don't have to wait for long-running processes back on the server to complete, which then can cause some flakiness.
Wait, you mean when you stub out a test, you can actually listen to the XHR call and tell it what you want to return?
I can tell it exactly what I want to return. So this makes my tests a lot more reliable. I don't have any sort of things that could possibly trip this up. Edge cases. So now if I want to test a page where I have to have a product that has 10 or less items so that this other panel displays, I just say, hey, pass this data back. When we make the call for that product, pass it back with this data. I don't have to go out and do anything extra for my edge cases.
When I want to test the scenario that there are no articles on the page, it took me a long time to figure out a search term that had none. Jesse was like the like the 1,000th term I tried to finally find something that didn't return any results, right? So rather than having to spend all that time and figure out a combination of test data that actually is the scenario I want, I could just tell it, don't return any articles.
You could have done that right away.
Oh.
Great. So in fact here, we just replace users with articles, or recent articles, and in the response of nothing. So again, we're starting the server, we're declaring a route. I can get very specific. I can use an object literal, or I can just pass it as parameters over. I can be all HTTP verbs, or I can specify down to get, put, post, those sorts of things. And then I give it my URL and what is my response. So in the case of where you want to search for, the articles that I've published for ng-doc, you'd be correct. It'd be 0. It'd be it'd be square brackets. Great.
So what about if I'm going to modify my data? Because in all my tests that I write in end-to-end using Selenium, I have to write the one, like we're going to check how to create a new user. So we create it, and of course the very next test has to be check how to delete a user, because the last thing I want to do is keep adding users to my system. Can I do this with not just gets?
Yeah, I can do this with any method at all. In fact, in those cases, if you need to have different data come back for different types of verbs, then I want to declare each one individually. If I'm doing the same data for multiple gets or whatnot, then I'd want to be specific or not. I mean, it really just depends on the use case. So stubs really help solve our problem with being able to return the exact data that we want. So we're going to take a quick look at an example here.
We got a question.
Oh, we have a question? Yes.
Well, actually, we got one way in the back
way
first.
in the back.
Does it fail if the call isn't made? If you wait for it, it fails if the call isn't made. So that's another thing that's nice, is you can decide, hey, we're going to wait for this call. If that call is never made, whether that's a stubbed call or a non-stubbed call, then the test will fail if it's not made.
If you stub the call, it will come back though.
So I don't understand the use case of this, because I would only stub or mock the data that I want to return in unit test. I wouldn't want to do it in end-to-end test. In end-to-end test, I would want the data to come from the back end.
So that's a great question.
Repeat the question.
She's saying basically that she wouldn't want to stub data in an end-to-end test. And this is a common argument that we hear, okay? But the point is that actually to testing the application isn't about testing the back end. You should have integration tests that adequately test out the back end. And really what we're trying to do here with the end-to-end test is test out the interactions of the browser, what the user is doing, and making sure that the application is going to respond correctly.
So it doesn't mean don't do your end-to-end tests and don't test out the back end, but this allows you to do more scenarios, right? If you want to hit scenarios, writing end-to-end tests for every possible scenario and application is pretty time-consuming. This allows you to write tests that test the front end for a lot of other scenarios that you just don't want to spend the time writing those tests for the back end, and they're lots faster. Right?
Yeah, they're a lot faster. This is how we test out all of our edge cases very, very quickly and very, very easily. So I'm just going to give you an example here. The first one here, we're firing up the server, we're doing the recent articles, we're visiting our page, and we would expect then, since we're returning blank, that we'd have article lengths of 0. Great. Here, I have an article from Kim Maida that we want to have that one returned. And so I can put whatever data that I want in here. I can change this data for this exact scenario. Fantastic. And I can alias that, bring it back, and I can expect that now that we have an article of 1. I can then also inspect, what's actually being displayed. Does it match with what I expect, so on and so forth. This really allows us to be able to do the edge test, edge case testing that is very difficult to do with other tools. We're kind of running out of time here, so
let's have them just do that, and then I'll cover CI real quick, and then we'll be done. Let's have them do their.
Do you want to do fixtures?
No.
All right, I'll just say it really quick. This gets really messy, so the other, with being able to copy the data around from spot to spot to spot, one of the things you want to look into is fixtures. This allows us to create JSON files and reference those JSON files instead. This allows us to do infinite number of scenarios, and then keep that really clean and not inside of our tests. So let's go ahead, and you want to go ahead and write out the subtest?
Yeah. So if you actually have Cypress installed, let's follow along. We're going to code along together. We're going to do a test where we're going to check displaying 2 tags, right? So right here, we're we got a little bit of a cheat, right? It shows us what the tags are. Again, in our application, tags are these areas over here. So when it requests the tags, it actually goes and it gets all the tags that are going to display over here. We can write a really quick test for what's going to happen when we only get 2 tags back from our request. The request is, where's our URL? Well, this is the tag model. So we can look at what the
API tags.
API tags.
Yep.
So I'm going to do a little bit of copy and paste. I'm going to grab the server and grab the route right there. And API/tags. And this is going to tell me what data I want to get back. And we will grab this sample data right here and put a comma and do a second one. And the tag will do testing and routing.
We want
constructor and
and
components. All right. So constructor, components. All right, and change the 2, we'll close out that array. So there's my route, and then
close out your route.
Close it out. That's a
parenthesis.
Nice indentation. Okay, then we want to visit. All right. Oh, did we do an as? We didn't do an as.
Tags, maybe.
Tags,
yeah.
I like that. All right, sci.visit, the root, sci.wait, at tags. We won't put in a condition. We could put in easily put in our check to assert that we have 2 tags returned. We'll save that and go back and see if I did this right. Live coding for the win. Should wait for tags. Recent articles should display.
You're in the wrong test. No, you're in the right test file.
I'm in the right test file. It waits, right? No, stubs. Oh, I'm in the wrong test file. Go back to Cypress and do stubs. Stubs. What's the chance I got this right? 20%?
50? I don't know.
All right. Look, should display 2 tags right there on the side. It shows me I actually did return just 2 tags. There's my display that lets me test that, and now I can assert, hey, only 2 tags showed up, or what other conditions would actually come up when there's just 2 tags. So the last thing I want to talk about is running Cypress in CI mode. It's great to do this, but of course we want to incorporate this as part of our CI process. This is the best part because this is so super simple and easy. Go back to my terminal, and I can
the other one.
I can do this easily. It's just a simple command. I'm going to end Cypress here. And instead of npx Cypress open, it's Cypress run. And of course, this is just a command line, so I can set this up with CI to run this on command line. I hit this, and this is just going to run all of my tests in the entire suite of tests and report those out. And that's it for running Cypress in CI mode. I can go into the configuration, I can give it different reporters and report out to a JSON file or an XML file and incorporate that as part of my Travis process or TFS or whatever crazy CI system I might be using. And
oh, look at that. Do you see it says video?
oh, video. That's another really cool thing is when you run in CI mode, it'll actually capture a video of every test that was actually run. So as this is running, let's see here. If we go in, we see that there's now a videos directory. We won't play these videos, but there are MP4s that are for each test. And even better, there's this screenshots. If any of my tests fail, Cypress will take a screenshot of the test at the failing point that'll let me begin to dig back into what test failed and what point the test was at when it failed.
So everything that we've shown you today is free from Cypress. You don't have to pay a dime to use any of this. It's absolutely fantastic tool. If you want some more integrations to help you be able to manage this process, obviously trying to go look at screenshots and videos that are up on a CI box is a little bit more difficult. And so they actually offer a dashboard component that you can purchase. They actually have a free seedling version of that. So actually most small teams could start out with that and be able to use that to run these tests and validate what they're doing at no cost. For larger organizations, they have a whole workflow around it. It makes it very, very simple. So I hope what you guys get out of today is that end-to-end testing can actually be very productive. It can be very reliable. We can test out all of our edge cases. We just have to change a little bit of our paradigm, what we think about how we write tests, and taking advantage of stubs and fixtures and aliases and weights. And there's tons of other features that we didn't show you, how you could, if you have a dashboard that loads from 10 different sources, you could write routes for all of those and then wait for all 10 of them to complete before a single test begins to run.
It's definitely been my experience that Cypress tests are much quicker to write and much easier to maintain than the Selenium and Protractor tests that I used to write. So for those of you who didn't get the Cypress installed, if you do finally get it installed, go to this project and actually walk through these user-created exercises that we put together for you when you get a chance, if you didn't get a chance to do it here, and just see how quick and easy and simple Cypress is to use, and then go back and beat up your project manager until you get approval to put it into your project.
Excellent. Well, hey, I think we made end-to-end testing reliable. Good job. All right, thanks everybody for coming.